She said no, and that was her first
No.
mistake.
I told you I'm not
Every
doing
morning,
that.
his assistant called. Every evening, a black car idled outside her building. And every time she thought she'd made herself clear, Kim Jae-won appeared at her desk himself. Quiet, unhurried, a new reservation card between his fingers. He didn't chase women, not once in 34 years. So why was the most powerful CEO in Seoul standing at her office door like he had nowhere else to be? Welcome to K-Afro Stories Beasties. Please like, share, and subscribe. The first card arrived on a Tuesday. Safiya Kamara noticed it immediately. A small cream rectangle sitting on top of her morning brief, embossed with the name of a restaurant so exclusive it had no online presence, no reviews, no address anyone could find without already knowing it. The handwriting on the back was clean and unhurried. 8 o'clock. J. She read it once, turned it over, set it down. Then she tore it in half and dropped it in the recycling bin without a second thought. Kim Jae-won was the largest single investor in Luminous Beauty Group, the K-beauty company where Safiya worked as head of brand strategy. His holding company, Jae-won Investments, had acquired a significant stake 8 weeks ago, and since then the building had been operating on a low current of collective anxiety. New money, new eyes, new standards, nobody had been told yet. Safiya had been brought in 14 months ago to rebuild the identity of Luminous's struggling skincare line, and she had done it quietly and completely, the way she did everything. Numbers that hadn't moved in 2 years had shifted. The board had started saying her name differently. She didn't need Kim Jae-won's attention. She certainly didn't need his dinner invitations. The second card arrived Wednesday. Same restaurant. Same time. This one said, "You didn't call." J. She tore that one too. By Friday, a third envelope arrived, hand-delivered to the 23rd floor, bypassing the front desk entirely. Same restaurant, same time. This one said, "I've reserved the same table every night this week." Safiya filed it in her desk drawer. Not because she intended to use it, but because a man reserving the same table every night for a week felt like evidence of something she couldn't name yet. She preferred to keep evidence until she understood it. She met him properly the following Monday. Kim Jae-won came to the executive floor at 10:30 with the focused energy of a man who had not come to be impressed. He was taller than the photographs that circulated in the business press, leaner. The photographs never captured the quality of his stillness, the way he occupied a room without performing for it, the way people unconsciously oriented toward him, the way a compass orients north. Safiya was at the glass wall of the conference room when he passed through the corridor. He slowed. His eyes found her through the glass with the specific quality of a man who had already been looking. She didn't look away. Neither did he. He had dark eyes that assessed things with the clean economy of someone who had learned long ago that attention was a resource not to be wasted. They moved over her face. The goddess locks pinned back with a tortoiseshell clip. The cheekbones her mother had given her. The deep brown of her skin against the cream silk of her blouse. They moved over the length of her. Tall. The particular grace of a woman who had never tried to take up less space than she naturally occupied, and then back up to her face. He didn't look away from that either. Then he walked into the boardroom. The meeting ran 4 hours. Safiya presented Q3 brand performance, the new campaign architecture, and 3 strategic directions for the coming international expansion. She spoke the way she always did, clearly without hedging, without seeking approval in anyone's expression before she moved to the next point. She had learned years ago that the room followed a voice that didn't ask for permission. She had built that voice deliberately. Jae-won sat at the end of the table and said nothing for the first 2 hours. He listened with the full weight of his attention, and Safiya felt it the way you feel the temperature of a room before you've identified the source. When his eyes were on her slides, she noticed. When they were on her, she kept talking. "The third direction," he said when she finished. His voice was low and unhurried, carrying the slight precision of a man who had learned English as a second language and then mastered it. "Walk me through the market entry rationale again." She did. He asked 4 more questions. Each one landed in exactly the place she'd been most careful about. The seams in her logic she'd hoped no one would find. He found all of them, not to embarrass her, but because he was actually thinking. She answered without notes and adjusted 2 positions in real time. He noticed that too. When the room cleared, he was the last one standing. She was gathering her materials. "You didn't come," he said. She looked up. "I'm sorry?" "To dinner." He said it with the same tone he'd used for the market rationale, factual, waiting to be examined. "I didn't think it was appropriate," she said. "Why not? You're an investor in this company." "I hold stakes in 14 companies." He picked up the presentation folder she'd left on the table, turned it over. "I don't invite their brand managers to dinner." "Then why me?" He looked at her with that measured directness. "Because in 4 hours, every person in this room was managing what I thought. You were the only one who was just working." He set the folder down. "I haven't seen that in a long time." Safiya held his gaze. He wasn't flattering her. He was stating an observation with the same precision he'd brought to her market rationale, and the accuracy of it was more unsettling than any compliment would have been. "I'll think about it," she said. She didn't go. The 4th card arrived Tuesday, the 5th on Wednesday. By Thursday, the black car outside her building had become a fixture, present every morning when she left, present every evening when she returned. Safiya walked past it without slowing. She told herself it didn't change anything. Thursday afternoon, he came himself. No assistant. No envelope passed through a third party. Jae-won walked onto the 23rd floor at 4:30, crossed the open-plan space with that particular stillness of his, and stopped at her office door. He held no card this time, nothing in his hands at all. Everyone in the vicinity suddenly found reasons to look at their screens. Safiya looked up from her laptop. She did not stand. He looked at her for a long moment from the doorway. Then he said quietly, "I would like you to come to dinner, Safiya. Not as a card, as a request." She held his gaze. He didn't explain himself. He didn't perform. He just stood there the way he stood everywhere, like the room was his to occupy, and he had chosen to occupy this particular corner of it. "I'll think about it," she said. He nodded once and left. The entire floor exhaled. Friday night, late, the floor empty around her. Her phone rang. Unknown number. "You tore up 5 cards," he said when she answered. She paused. "How do you know I tore them?" "Because you didn't call, and you're not someone who ignores things she doesn't feel. You remove them." A beat of silence. "There's a difference." Safiya sat back in her chair. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Seoul spread below her, neon and glass and the dark thread of the Han River catching distant light. The city she had come to alone and made her own. "What do you want, Mr. Kim?" "Dinner." "Why?" The pause this time was shorter than the ones in the conference room. "Because I have eaten at that restaurant with board members and business partners for 15 years. Want to eat there once with someone who doesn't need anything from me." She looked at her own reflection in the dark glass, goddess locks framing her face, the long line of her neck and shoulders, a woman who had built herself deliberately and didn't intend to let that work be undone by a man with a reservation card and a black car. "One dinner," she said. "And I pay for myself." The silence that followed was brief, the particular silence of a man who had not been surprised in quite some time. "Saturday," he said. 8 o'clock. She hung up first. The restaurant was everything the address had kept secret. A narrow door in a Gangnam side street. No sign. Pale wood corridors that opened into a private room with one table, low lighting, and a window onto a courtyard, where bamboo grew in clean lines against white stone. The kind of place that asked nothing of you except that you be entirely present. Safiya sat across from him and read the menu in Korean. He watched her do it without offering to help. "You read Korean," he said. 18 months, she said. "I ordered pig intestine stew at a business lunch in my 3rd month. I thought it was a beef broth." She looked up. "I finished it." Something at the corner of his mouth, almost a smile. "Good instinct." "Survival instinct," she said. "Different thing." They ordered. The food arrived in quiet intervals, and they talked the way two careful people talk when they're each deciding how much to give. In measured exchanges, each one slightly more honest than the last. He asked about her work before Luminos. She gave him the real version. She had built her career on instinct and stubbornness in equal measure, had walked away from situations that wanted to use her precision without crediting it, had come to Seoul because Luminos had offered her actual space to build something that would last. "You left stability for uncertainty," he said. "I left a ceiling for a window," she said. "I know the difference." He considered that. "Most people don't leave until the ceiling is pressing them. I moved before it could." She looked at him. "Is that what you were really asking? Whether I'm someone who runs toward things or away from them?" His eyes held hers. "Both are worth knowing." "And which am I?" "Toward," he said. "You move toward things. You just make sure they've earned it first." The accuracy of that settled somewhere she hadn't offered him access to. She picked up her chopsticks. "Why did you really want dinner?" she said. "Not the version you told me on the phone." He was quiet for a moment. The bamboo outside shifted in a wind neither of them could hear. "I read your brand analysis before I authorized the Luminos investment," he said. "Not the summary, the full document, 300 pages." He picked up his glass. "I've reviewed acquisition analyses for 20 years. Yours was the first one that read like someone who actually cared what happened to the thing they were building." She looked at him. "That's why you came to the Thursday meetings." "That's why I came to the Thursday meetings." "And the cards." "And the cards." He set the glass down. "I wanted to know if the person matched the work." "And?" He looked at her steadily. "You already know the answer." The dinner stretched 2 hours past what she'd planned, not because either of them performed for it, because neither of them did, and that rarity had its own gravity. When they left, he walked her to the street. The black car was waiting. She didn't get in. "I'll take the subway," she said. He looked at her for a moment. "It's nearly midnight." "I know, Seoul," she said. "I built myself here. I know how to get home." Something moved through his face. Not frustration, something closer to respect, shaded with the specific discomfort of a man who was used to providing and was being declined. "Saturday was good," he said finally. "Saturday was good," she agreed. She walked to the station. She was 2 blocks away before she let herself exhale. The weeks after the dinner were a study in proximity neither of them had agreed to, and neither of them moved away from. He appeared at the Luminos strategy meetings he had no contractual obligation to attend. He appeared at her door one morning with 2 coffees and the 3rd section revisions to her Japan expansion pitch written in the margins of a printed copy. She took the coffee and looked at the notes. They were correct. Every single one. "You printed my internal document," she said. "I'm a board observer. It came through the standard channel. You annotated it. You left 3 logical gaps in the sequencing." He sat down across from her desk without being invited, the way he had started doing, and she had started allowing without acknowledging that she was allowing it. "The board will find them. I found them first." She read through his notes in silence. Fixed two on the spot. Disagreed with one and told him why. He listened, recalibrated, said, "You're right. No qualification, no softening, just the clean acknowledgement of someone who had no investment in being wrong." She had never once heard a man in a boardroom say that without the word "but" following it. "Thank you," she said, which was the most she intended to give him. "Have lunch with me," he said. "I have a noon call." After. Jae-won. Safiya. He said her name the way he said everything, directly, without decoration. "Lunch. That's all." She went. It was not all. Lunch became a pattern, 3 times a week, sometimes 4, always at places small enough that no one was watching. A naengmyeon spot near Iljiro he had been going to since university, a Japanese-Korean fusion place in Mangwon tucked far enough from the main street that the city forgot to look. Safiya learned him in those hours the way she learned cities, by moving through the unpolished parts. He was drier than the photographs suggested. He had specific opinions about cold noodles that he expressed with a seriousness disproportionate to the subject. He asked questions and then listened to the answers with his full attention in a way that made her want to keep talking, which she recognized as something to be careful about. She was careful. And then, slightly less careful. And then she was not thinking about it anymore. The moment that changed the balance came on a Thursday evening at an industry event in Itaewon, Luminos's campaign reveal, the one Safiya had built from a blank brief. She was standing near the installation watching the crowd's reaction with the focused calm of a surgeon in theater when the distribution partner appeared beside her. He was in Seoul for the quarter, charming in the uncomplicated way of someone who had never needed to work at it, and he had been finding reasons to exist in Safiya's orbit for 3 weeks. She didn't dislike him. She hadn't encouraged him. "The installation is extraordinary," he said. "This is all you?" "My team," she said. "Your team does what you build." He smiled. "Same thing." He said something after that which was actually funny, and she laughed. A real one, unguarded. The kind that changed her face entirely. Across the room, she felt the temperature drop before she found the source. Jae-won was standing 30 feet away, glass in hand. His eyes were on her with a stillness that had nothing controlled about it. He set his glass down on a passing tray, crossed the room at a pace that was unhurried and entirely deliberate. He nodded once at the other man, brief, courteous, final. Then he turned to Safiya and said simply, "The campaign is exactly what you promised it would be. Genuine assessment, nothing more." But he said it looking at her in a way that made the rest of the room irrelevant. The other man read the room the way perceptive people do, and made a smooth excuse about finding a drink. "You didn't need to do that," Safiya said quietly. "I wanted to tell you the campaign landed. You could have waited." "I didn't want to wait." His voice dropped just slightly. "And I didn't like watching him make you laugh like that." It was the most unguarded thing he had ever said to her. No business framing, no careful distance. Just honest and slightly exposed, and said by a man who clearly hadn't planned to say it. She looked at him. "Jae-won." "I know," he said. "I know what I should say." "What should you say?" "That it's none of my business what makes you laugh." He looked out over the Seoul skyline, briefly, then back at her. "But I don't want to say that." The air between them had changed completely. She felt it in the length of her spine. "Come find me before you leave tonight," she said. She walked back into the crowd before she could change her mind. He found her at 11, by the railing, the city below in full blaze. He stood beside her. Neither of them spoke for a while. "I grew up in Freetown," she said eventually. Not a non sequitur. A door opening. "My mother used to say that the ocean there doesn't negotiate. It just moves. You either move with it or you get dragged." She paused. I have spent my entire career moving before things could drag me. He was quiet, listening the way he always listened, completely. I need you to understand that about me, she said. If this becomes something, I don't simplify. I don't shrink. I don't disappear into someone else's world. He turned to face her, something open in his expression. The surveyor's distance gone. I'm not asking you to disappear, he said. I'm asking the opposite. His hand found hers at the railing, unhurried, certain. She looked at their hands, at him, at the city that had become hers. She turned her hand over beneath his. The threat arrived 9 days later as a message from a blocked number she almost ignored. She was in the elevator heading to the 23rd floor when her phone buzzed with a message from a blocked number. 1. Line. They're going to publish tomorrow. Check your email. She checked it in the elevator. A journalist she had never heard of had sent a request for comment on an article due to publish the next morning. The article alleged that Safiya Kamara's appointment at Luminos had been engineered by Kim Jae-won's holding company. That she was not an independent hire, but a planted operative, brought in to inflate Luminos's brand value ahead of Jae-won's acquisition, benefiting Jae-won financially. It alleged a prior, undisclosed relationship. None of it was true. All of it was constructed from real dates and real document references, selectively arranged to mean something they didn't. She called him before she reached her floor. I've seen it, he said. When did you know? 20 minutes ago. It was flagged to me. His voice was controlled, and beneath the control was something cold. I can kill it. One call. No. Safiya. No. She stepped off the elevator, walked to her office. Closed the door. If you kill it, it looks like suppression. It will surface again. Bigger. With that added to it. And my name will still be attached to whatever story people invent about why it disappeared. Silence. I need the original hire documentation, the full Jae-won investment timeline, and the internal communications log from both companies for the past 12 months. Everything time-stamped. I'll have it to you within the hour. And I need to know who in this building had access to my performance reports before they went to the board. His pause was the specific kind that meant he already suspected something. There's a short list. Then make it shorter. She sat down, opened her laptop. I'm handling this, Jae-won. I need you to give me what I asked for and then let me work. He gave her everything she'd asked for within 40 minutes. She worked through the night. What she built was not a denial. Denials created debate. She built a timeline. Clean, documented, irrefutable. That made the article's core allegation structurally impossible. Her hire predated the Jae-won investment by 11 months and 3 board votes. Every performance report had been submitted through a single standard channel. There was no prior relationship. There was a board observer who had read her analysis and respected her work, which was not a conflict of interest. It was business. She filed the response at 4 in the morning and sent copies through every legitimate channel available to her. The article published at 7. By 10, it had been challenged on every factual point. By afternoon, the outlet had issued a correction. By the following morning, a retraction. The source, when it was traced, was a board member whose consulting arrangement with Luminos had been quietly discontinued when Safiya's brand overhaul made his retainer redundant. Not sophisticated. Not even particularly clever. Just patient and resentful and in possession of enough partial information to do damage with. He was removed from the board. The retraction published. Safiya read it once and closed the tab. Jae-won was at her office by 6 that evening. He closed the door and stood for a moment reading her face. You're not relieved, he said. Retractions move quietly, she said. The article moved loudly. There are people who saw one and not the other. He crossed to her desk and sat in the chair across from her. Not the end of the table, not a power position. Across from her. Level. That's a real problem, he said, and I don't have a fast solution for it. She looked at him. She had half expected him to come in and tell her it was handled. That was what men in his position did. They resolved, and then they expected gratitude for the resolving. He was not doing that. He was sitting with the part that wasn't fixed and saying so. I know who you are in this city, she said quietly. I know that my name being connected to yours, regardless of what the connection is, changes how people read me. I knew that before tonight. And you stayed. I stayed. She held his gaze. I need you to understand what that costs, so you don't waste it. He looked at her with an expression she had never seen on him before. Not the surveyor's assessment, not the contained, almost smiles. Something without any professional surface on it at all. Something that had stopped performing for even itself. I've built things my entire life, he said. Structures that hold, systems that function. He leaned forward slightly. I have never wanted something the way I want this to hold. The office was quiet. Seoul blazed beyond the glass, indifferent and brilliant. She stood up. He stood up. The space between them closed the rest of the way. She remembered the warmth of him and the specific way he held her. Not claiming, not performing tenderness, just present. Like he had been from the beginning. Like presence was the thing he had always been best at. The city receded. The moment held the room entirely. The morning was gray and quiet and entirely real. Safiya stood at her window with tea, looking at Seoul under early cloud. She heard him in the kitchen, the careful quiet of a man moving through someone else's space without assuming rights to it. She had noted that about him from the beginning, without letting herself name it. He never assumed. He waited to be given things. He appeared in the doorway with his own cup, looked at the city, looked at her. The Japan pitch, he said. She nearly smiled. Now? The board meets Thursday. The revised third section is strong. You'll get the approval. And if I do, I'm in Tokyo 3 months out of every quarter. I know. That's a real complication. Yes. He crossed the room and stood beside her at the window. I'm not asking you to make it simpler. I'm asking you to not let it be a reason to not try. She looked at him, the man who had sent 5 dinner invitations she'd torn in half, who had reserved a table every night of the week and sat at it alone, who had printed her document and annotated the margins and said, "You're right," without a qualifier, and meant it every time. Ask me properly, she said. He turned to face her, the controlled stillness entirely gone. Just him. Safiya Kamara. His voice was quiet and specific and held nothing back. Let me be where you come back to. She let the words settle. Let them find all the places she had kept carefully empty for a long time. You'll have to be patient, she said. Tokyo is real and I don't compromise on my work. I know that about you. He turned back to the gray city. I have been waiting since I read your analysis. I can manage Tokyo. She leaned her shoulder against his arm, small and deliberate. He didn't make anything of it. Didn't pull her closer. Didn't speak. Just stayed still and let her be there on her own terms, which was the thing he had always understood best about her. Seoul carried on below them, the way it always did. 6 months later, the Japan expansion launched. On time. Under budget. With numbers the board had not predicted and could not stop talking about. Safiya stood at the back of the room during the debrief, with her arms crossed and her expression contained, watching 12 people respond to work she had built from nothing, and felt the particular satisfaction of a woman who had known it would land because she had made sure of every piece. Jae-won was in the room. When the applause broke, actual applause, in a boardroom, which she had never witnessed, she felt his eyes find her across the space. He said nothing. He didn't need to. The look he gave her was the one she had catalogued from the very first conference room and understood now completely. Not assessment. Not approval. Just, I see you. The way he had always seen her. She looked away first, hid the smile in the direction of the window. That evening, in a Gangnam restaurant that had no sign, and no address anyone could find without already knowing it, at a table with a history that belonged only to them, Kim Jae-won placed a small box in front of her. She looked at it, looked at him. "I'm not performing," he said. The words from the conference room returned. "I know," she said. She opened the box. The ring inside was simple and architectural. Clean lines, no excess. Exactly the kind of thing a man who paid attention would choose for a woman who moved through the world on her own terms. Not decorative, a claim. She looked at it for a long moment. "I tore up 5 of your cards," she said. "I know. That should have discouraged you. It told me everything I needed to know." He held her gaze across the table, steady and certain, the way he had been from the beginning. "It told me you were worth everyone. Safiya Kamara, who had come to Seoul alone and built something real here, who had moved before the ceiling could touch her, who had looked a powerful man in the face and said no, and meant it until she decided otherwise, picked up the ring. She put it on herself, because that was who she was. He watched her do it and said nothing, and the silence between them was the most complete thing he had ever given her. Outside, Seoul moved through its evening, neon and glass and the Han River carrying the city's light into the dark. Inside, 2 people who had found each other across 5 torn cards and 1 reserved table, and a city that had asked everything of both of them sat in a restaurant with no name and understood, without needing to say it, that some things are worth exactly what they cost. Every morning his assistant had called. Every evening the black car had waited. Kim Jae-won had not chased women in 34 years. He had waited for one.